Good evening. Welcome to the ShadowTrader Video Weekly for Sunday, July 30th, 2017. All right. A lot of the stuff that I said in last week's video kind of came true. There was some good action in light. It was short-lived, but the breakout that I told you guys about made a lot of sense, and a lot of people followed us into the trade at 64, ran it up to 68, got out of half in the low 67s and then moved stop to break even, and you can see that got taken out. Also, CN was the other play, right? If you can recall, the video said what two IBD 50 stocks are in play, and I was saying Sienna here, and it did go up pretty good, and then again also fell back down. And it's important to note that because of the broad market action, a lot of the IBD 50 stocks are all kind of acting the same way, where you have these kind of failed moves. So this next week is going to be very, very selective for me, to be honest with you. And I'm probably not going to be focusing on too much all straight out directional stuff. It'd probably be more of a credit selling approach for me. So I hope that that helps. Let's just take a brief look at the SPX, and then I want to get into some other stuff. You'll notice in the bullet points to the video, I wrote that the rocky earnings season keeps majors at bay, so a larger balance area seems to be developing in the S&P. And remember, the last time we had it here, you had this kind of longer shaped balance area here, kind of shaped like this kidney bean here. But this has been kind of the MO of the market for a while, that you get these large balance areas, and in between you get a clean move, and then nothing. So it seems that this is developing longer. So be aware of how long it's been in the past. I mean, you have this, which is just kind of this slow dribble here, but look at this. Even this one here is more than this. This from here to here is the long-term area, so this could be longer. So we'll see. Just keep that in mind. We may be bouncing for a bit, and as of now, there's absolutely no bias other than sideways to up. That's really all you can say about it. Take a quick look at profile, just to update you guys where I'm at with that. Those of you that have been in the James Dalton Mastery Series Course 2, you will have heard my comments. This is being recorded on Friday afternoon at like 4:11 p.m. So you already know my comments there. And basically, Jim and I were of the same mind that there's not a lot going on here. One thing I do want to point out is there's definitely some poor high action forming here. You've got 1, 2, and then lack of material excess here. There's only 3 TPOs here across. You've got kind of like 3 poor highs developing. And this poor high here was developing in these early periods, like A through G, or B through G rather, before the big break, and then it was H period that took us down on Thursday. And there was a little bit of rumor, you know, that Morgan Stanley said something about the RSI on the Qs, and somebody else from some fund said that markets were, you know, that the FANG stocks were overheated or something like that. I don't really pay too much attention to that stuff, but mainly it's usually always due to the inventory situation. So people were just getting too long. It's unfortunate, though, the way this happened, because it's very, very hard to get short here. It's really almost impossible. I mean, the candlestick chart of when we were at the Thursday highs was literally, I think, 10 or 11 5-minute bars that just looked like this, and then it just dropped. So, you know, you can't really know. A better bet to do is sometimes if you see a poor high developing is just take the short intraday. I've done that before and it's worked out well. It's never worked out this well for me where you get this huge break, but I've certainly been in situations where I've seen, like, you know, something like this develop like late in the day. And you guys have actually seen me do this on Twitter, if you recall, where when I see that developing, I'm a much bigger fan of doing it at the end of the day and then just going out short or long off the poor high or poor low, and then making my money in the overnight session, like 4 or 5 hours later. But midday, it's a little bit harder to predict that we'd get this move. But anyway, we got this large liquidation break, filled up a couple of gaps that we had still had open. There were some gaps here that have gotten filled out. The low did have excess, so that means that the down auction could be finished. Obviously, the move was double distribution, so not the greatest structure. But you had excess here. And then, as I was pointing out in my blog on Friday morning, you want to always be thinking in terms of what happened, what didn't happen in relation to the prior day's range. So, for instance, the overnight between Thursday's session and Friday's, it didn't make it anywhere down here into the spike. So that's a little bit more bullish. And also in the blog in the morning, I pointed out that there's a 45-degree line, really a serious 45-degree line, almost perfect, on the overnight futures. don't pay that much attention to the overnight structure. Don't really get into it. But when I see a big signal like that, like a very clean 45-degree line, I think about it. And lo and behold, on Friday, again, we couldn't make it below the overnight low. Very mechanical buying, short-term traders in effect. Jim made the comments that he feels that these lows are pretty unsecure. I tend to agree. Remember, an unsecure low is just one that happens right at a perfect technical area. And the reason that it's unsecure, it means that when price comes back through here, it has good odds of crashing through, because the buyers that were active here at these levels, they're very weak. And you can just figure that out yourself from a psychological basis and common sense, essentially. Well, what type of buyer do you think buys at a perfect overnight low? All right. Or here, for instance, in the overnight session, sells right when the bell rings and it goes 2 ticks above the settlement and they start to sell it. These are very, very short-term sellers. And short-term sellers essentially don't have a lot of staying power. So that's the way you want to look at that. All right. So that's profile for now. And now I want to get into kind of the meat of this video, which is what I'm calling it a technical analysis case study on USD CAD. And this is really, really interesting because it's not a big trade for me. I don't trade a lot of FX, but I did take this trade. And I thought it was really interesting how it just worked out perfectly on a technical basis. And it gave a lot of signals and things I wanted to seriously talk about. So make a long story short, I was long USD CAD, basically starting here. And then you can see here, these are all buys. And here's where I was most of. So most of the buying was done here. But I was long 1 mini lot here. And here I was long 3 more. So, and the reason on the 1251, let's just get that out of the way first, is if you look on the daily, what had happened was that was bought here on this day. And I saw the market stabilize after a protracted move lower. And I saw it make a double bottom. So I thought to myself, okay, sometimes support comes in before the actual support point. And what would confirm it would be if the 2 lows are equal. So I thought, okay, that's possible. So it makes sense to take 1 right there. So that's kind of educational point number 1, is when you see a double bottom and you're near support, the signal is that that may have been it. You don't want to just sit there and say, oh, well, it didn't go down to my level. That could be the level. So naturally, I bought 1 unit there. Okay. Then I had no intention of selling that 1 unit if we broke these lows, because I knew that this support was here. So if you go back to the 15-minute chart, you can see that I started getting more active in here, very close to the support. And you can see here's the 3 other buys. But only the first 2 buys, I should say, only the first 2 buys are on the move down. So it's basically like it moved down and it went boom, boom, and it hit my limit order to buy, essentially, right? And if I look at here on the 60, I want to show you something. This is really where it gets interesting. So, right, and obviously these lines here are drawn way over here, but I'm just going to give you some clarity on this. It's actually here. So right in here, as we come down to support, that's buy number 2 and buy number 3. And buy number 4 happens right here. And why is it? It's absolutely so perfect technically, because think about it, right? Long 1 here where I saw a double bottom. Turned out to be wrong, but that's okay. I don't exit because I know that this support is waiting for me here. We come into support and I buy 2 more units. And as soon as I buy them right here on this candle, it just breaks through. But because we've just broken support and what I was watching, I was noticing that the candle was so large that usually when the candle is really big like that, what's happening is all the stops are just being triggered right here. It is real selling and it is going there, but what's really happening is stops are being triggered, which is not really the same as new money sellers coming in to initiate shorts, or the most potent combination of old long selling, old business, and then new business, right? I'm thinking it's only old business, it's just longs getting out. So I don't close my position, and it turns out to be the right thing to do because, as you can see, you get a big bottoming tail that closes way up here, all right? So now I'm in much better shape because I'm kind of long, close to my entry of the 3 contracts here. This one's a little bit underwater, but I'm okay with it. And you can see what happens. Price goes up, and then it comes down again. But my thought process is that unless the flush low here is violated, you should never get out of the position for a loss. Let the flush low get violated. And as you can see, the low where it flushed out doesn't get violated. Price rises and goes where? Right back to the support level and backs off, which is natural, comes back, and then does what? Rallies, and then boom, that's the buy stop. That's the buy stop. And I think I even sent a tweet about this saying that over 1.2461 is a strong buy signal in USD CAD. And so that's where the fourth lot went on. And then for about the rest of the half of the day, that day, earlier in the week, it was all gravy. It looked beautiful. And then it looked beautiful in here. And then unfortunately, for whatever reason, it just got destroyed. And again, big candle here. And notice that I don't sell until here because I let the flush occur. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, it could be another flush because notice that the candle actually closed above the support point, which is important. But then when it goes down, then I immediately move the stop to here. And boom, it gets taken and I'm out. And that's the sell right there. And so net, obviously, most of the buys are here in the buy, and I sold here. So I lost this whole piece on the 3 lots and this on the 1. And these are mini lots. You're talking, it's the 10,000 instead of the 100,000. Altogether, it's probably a loss of, I don't know, $150. It's absolutely immaterial to me, but the technical lesson here that I hope I can share with you, I think is amazing, of when to enter to be completely objective and how and when to do it. And certainly there's something to be said for the fact that because there's not a lot of money on the line, I can be more objective and, to me, trade it absolutely perfectly. Whereas if I was holding 5,000 shares Amazon, right, it might be a different story. Because when you have these swings here moving down, let's say this is 15, 20 points, you don't want to let yourself be down 75 to 100,000 when you're in the trade. So that's also an interesting psychological point, is that that's why generally I always tell traders, and obviously it's an old saw, everybody knows that you should trade as small as possible when you're first starting out, and you only want to move to the larger size when you start to get mentally sort of ready for it. But overall, I just wanted to share this with you because I just thought it was really just a classic technical setup, and it had a lot of interesting twists and turns that really would tell you where you should be in and where you should be out. And in closing, I'll just say, remember that even though this is USD CAD, everything acts the same. Technical analysis works real well on everything, and it's all the same. It could be a stock, it could be a future, doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's all going to act the same. All right, let's wrap it up with a couple of trade ideas to tell you what's going on. Maybe something. Gold is finally perking up, and I have not made any changes to the position. As you can see, I'm still along the original 50 contracts of the December calls, which are underwater but not as bad as they were. This number here was as bad as like almost 13,000. And you see it's picked up a bit, which is cool. But I'm still underwater in that this is 391 basis, and they're only trading at 2. And I have not been selling any call credit down here because it's been too cheap. But what's very interesting about this is if you look at it, we're possibly at, or we are actually over a 61.8 retracement from the high to low here. We just put the fib on it, and we go from this high move to the low move. Look at how it's broken through the 61.8. And it's actually closed well above. So I think it makes sense that you're going to fill up this area and go back to here. And if and when we do, of course, this is where we started the trade. But if and when we do, now you've got a really big buy signal, I think, in gold, because you came here and you dribbled away. You came to the trend line. And here, it's interesting, you had a double top, but you lost the trend line. You didn't go through. But in losing the trend line, this whole move is a fake out. And all this does is get more people short. These people are just more and more short, which makes sense. They should have. I'm not saying they did anything wrong. Like right here when you saw this break, anybody who's shorting on this day is very, very smart. But then look what happened. For whatever reason, just like the USD CAD, it turned out to be a flash in the pan. It was just a one-day thing. What does the gold market do? It does not go lower. It turns around. Now, all these people cover. It gaps up. All these people cover, and they just keep covering. And so we'll see if we can get up to this area. Then I can start selling calls again against it, probably at the 128, 130 level, bringing in more credit, bringing that debit down, and we take it from there. And I possibly am thinking even of stepping it up on the position. If we can get over the 123, maybe I'll add to the position and put on another spread for, say, January, February, or whatever, with some long strikes up in this area, 125-ish or whatever. All right. Russell was a trade that I did with Scott this week. Called the top here kind of perfectly, but not much happened until really Thursday and Friday. And what made the trade difficult was the fact that here you rallied back up and retested, and then didn't fall down here early on, retested again, and then it finally went. So now I think the trade in the Russell is possibly looking at some sort of put spreads that will maybe even take it to here, doing ratio spreads or broken wing butterflies where you can get some piece of this here on for free. So keep that in mind, and maybe even sell some calls up above outside of the channel with the assumption that the Russell is not going to break the channel to the upside. So it could be like a risk reversal as well. And last but not least, I am still keeping my eye out on the NDX channel at 60.80 now. It's moved up. It was at 60.60. It's approximately 60.80 right in here, and I think that will be a monstrous short opportunity. On behalf of myself and the entire Shadow Trading team here in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I wish you good trading and good night. Yeah.